Good afternoon. So, hello, Lily. I'm very lucky today to have a lady who I've met through networking,
Mm.
who's got a brilliant story. A lady called Lily Llewellyn, and
Yeah, it's me.
Lily is a qualified psychotherapist. She's a qualified business coach.
Yeah.
She is she's she's got an MA in anthropology.
Wow.
She's got an MA in psychotherapy, so she's very, very qualified. And I'm really excited to be doing this. Hello, Lily. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm great. Yeah, it's really wonderful to talk, and this has been the highlight of my day to come on and talk to you, Steve. So
Oh, have you had a bad day then? Is
no,
that- um,
no.
so, Lily, you have a really interesting story, and you have a really, really interesting niche, and
Mm,
it will become apparent through the course of this
yeah,
podcast why
yeah,
your niche is so interesting to me with my personal history.
yeah,
Um,
definitely.
but so, firstly, obviously, you've got more qualifications than I've got arms and legs.
Sure.
Um,
Which I'm not always mega proud of, by the way. Sometimes I roll my eyes and I think I am just like, how did that happen? Which I will tell everybody how it happened, but
yeah,
I am a little misqualified. It's true. Yeah.
yeah, and that's fine. That's not a
Mm,
problem. But
mm,
what I want to know is, so you obviously were going through an educational journey,
yeah.
and now you're self-employed. And
Mm,
how did that come about? What happened?
yeah. Yeah. It's a great question, and feel free to get a cup of tea because I can tell you the long story.
Already got
Um,
it.
yeah, I know. Me too. Me too. What drinks do you have, by the way?
I've got this cup of tea.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a
Okay.
cup of
I
tea.
have a cup of tea as well. So
That's all right then.
fine. So my story. So I have always been a business owner. I actually feel like there's a slight nuance between self-employed and business owner, but I won't get into it right now.
Yeah.
But I was always a business owner from the age of 19.
Okay, wow.
So it's been a little bit more than 10 years now. And I had various businesses and trained and studied at uni at the same time. So that's kind of how I got into it. And my work has changed and pivoted over the years, and I've now had a couple of little businesses. But yeah, roughly 10 years now in business.
Excellent. So so you said the business you started when you were 19.
Yes,
Did you use that as a vehicle to help you pay your way through university?
I did. Yep,
Yeah.
yep, I
So
did.
what was that business then?
So this was teaching English. I taught English to native English speakers. It was mainly
Okay.
helping people write their essays and getting them through English exams, but also to English people whose first language is not English.
Right, okay.
And that business started because I was really fortunate, aged kind of 18, 19. It was roughly right on my birthday. Um, I went to Spain because I got a TEFL qualification,
Yeah, teaching English as first language, as second language.
a
Yeah.
foreign language.
A foreign language, okay, yeah.
So I went over to Spain because Spain was a country that allowed me to be a legitimate teacher in a classroom and be paid and not have a degree.
Yeah.
So I went to Spain and really quickly, I mean, honestly, Steve, I was really fortunate and it's really bizarre that where I lived in Spain, which is a kind of a rural town in the northwest of Spain, it's called Orense. I would go there and I would literally just walk down the street and people would see me like blonde, blue eyes, and I'd literally get stopped and
Mm.
asked if I could. They said, "Well, you're obviously an English speaker and you live here. You teach English." And I was like, "Yes, I do." And I would get a client.
Wow, okay.
I mean, I've never known anything like it. It's the best business ever. So if
Yeah,
anyone's
absolutely.
listening and they want to do that,
Yeah.
yeah, like go teach English. Um, so it just absolutely picked up like wildfire. And I lived in Spain for about 2 years doing exactly this. And soon I stopped working in the school officially because I thought I can piggyback off doing this privately.
Hmm.
Um, and then I went to uni aged roughly 21. So at that point, I'd been teaching for about 2 or 3 years. And I thought, I'm just going to keep this going because I've got so much experience. And as I say, people would it would go through referrals and word of mouth that I could teach. So I just kept going.
Fantastic. And I
Yeah.
think that that's a really important thing to understand is you started your first self-employed role,
Mm,
business role, whatever you want to call
mm,
it,
mm.
and already you're sitting there thinking, right, okay, I'm getting my business through referrals and recognizing that
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
a legitimate way to generate
Yeah.
business, which is how a lot of people, particularly who are working for themselves by
Yeah.
themselves,
Yeah.
generate a lot of business. It's through
Yeah.
that word of mouth. It's
Word of
just
mouth.
happened you had that additional bonus of being blonde and fair
Mm.
skinned to be able to. You might
Yeah.
as well have had an advertisement on your head saying
Yeah.
English. Yeah,
English,
yeah.
come here.
Happy
Yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Perfect scenario. And
Yeah.
putting yourself in the right, again, you could almost say by accident you put yourself in the right marketplace for that
I
as well.
did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Completely accidentally. It was extraordinary, and nothing happens like it today because
yeah,
as my work as a psychotherapist and a coach, the word of mouth doesn't spread in that way.
yeah,
So I'd really appreciate what you say, and I absolutely agree about referrals, word of mouth. But I think there are some businesses that take off and others don't. Like
yeah.
counseling is not a business that word of mouth spreads.
No, I
Um,
think this. Do you think that's because there's almost that perception of
mm,
um, privacy that sits around it, and almost there's a
yeah,
feeling of embarrassment that people feel they need the help of an outsider to help them deal with their
yeah,
mental problems or mental health problems and stuff like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Is that, do you think that's the reason behind that?
I think it's a massive factor,
Mm,
absolutely. As well as I'm not sure that people want to share therapists
yeah,
with their friends. Like
yeah,
I don't know if I'd recommend my therapist to my sister or my bestie,
yeah,
because I think people get protective over their therapists. Also, people might say, "Would you recommend a great therapist?" And they'll say, I actually don't know because it's so unique. And the way that I work as a therapist is so collaborative. I could understand why my client might not recommend me to their friend because I'm going to work in a very different way.
yes, yeah,
Um, it's so personal.
yeah. I suppose as well, people with what certainly with what we both do, people
Mm,
open up and they
yeah.
open up, and you learn a lot about the individual because they build that trust relationship with you. They open up about
Yeah.
their, their thoughts or their secrets or things that they wouldn't want to share necessarily.
Mm,
And they want to
mm,
probably keep that private to themselves,
yeah.
and they'd rather not introduce somebody else into your
Yeah.
world who they know or whatever that
Yeah.
might be.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you go through your TEFL period in
Mm,
Spain,
mm,
come
mm-hmm.
back to England,
Mm-hmm.
and then go and do an anthropology masters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
So why anthropology, and then how did you go from anthropology into doing the
Yeah.
psychotherapy?
Psychotherapy. So I at that point I wanted to do a degree. I wanted to
Mhm,
study. And there's a little bit of a story about that, but I won't get into it. I kind of just didn't want to travel anymore. And I knew I didn't want to work. Because at that point, I mean, this I'm already giving you. I said I wouldn't give you the story, and I'm already
mhm,
doing it. But I I didn't want to work as an English teacher or kind of in hospitality, things like that. And I think that the actual truth is, I didn't think that I was going to be able to continue it without getting a degree.
mhm.
And the family that I come from were very much formal education is the way. People didn't believe that a business was going to sustain. So it was very much like, go and do this. I think now, if I had met a 21-year-old, I would have given very different advice. I would have said, you absolutely can. You don't have to get a degree. But
Yeah.
anyway, Lily, age 21, didn't see that. So I looked for a degree and I chose anthropology because there's a real fascination about people and the way that people work. I really wanted to study cultural anthropology to kind of have that lens. Um, and I found psychology at that time to be really kind of narrow-minded. Like, this is the brain, and of course you've got social psychology and things like that. So again, I think I would have done things differently. But at 21, I wanted to look at people really organically and socially and culturally. So I went to Aberdeen, which is the north of Scotland,
Yeah,
to study a 4-year MA in
right.
anthropology, and that's what I did. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And then once you've done the anthropology MA,
yeah.
you then moved into, was it psychology MA you did?
Yeah, it was person-centered counseling to be
Okay.
specific, but which is psychotherapy.
Okay,
Um,
psychotherapy. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Yep. And that took me roughly 18 months. And
Right.
I got qualified in being able to counsel adults, children, and young people.
Yeah.
So I did the full spectrum of development and family systems and things like that. So
Right. Okay. So
yeah.
this is for me where the journey gets interesting, really, really
Okay.
interesting. So you've
Okay.
got the qualification sat behind you,
Yeah.
and you know, most people when they come straight out of university,
Yeah.
they think, right, I need to get a job. Right,
Yeah.
that's the first thing they think.
Yeah.
Now, it sounds like you're a bit like me. I've never actually had an interview. I've been sat on the other side of the
Yeah.
table many times, but I've never had an
Yeah.
interview.
Yeah.
So what made you think, do you know what? That's it. I'm going to go out and start
Yeah.
my own practice. What was the
Sure.
thought process behind that?
Sure. It's a great question because I think what really motivated it was a feeling that I could. I was like,
Love that.
I can. Um, at that point, I think I'd had about 7 years experience, something like that. I think I was aged 27, so maybe there was 8 years experience
Yeah.
being in business. I had managed my clients. I marketed, I sold, I did everything that makes a business.
Hmm.
So I just thought, yeah, let's set up another business. Let's do counseling. Also, it never occurred to me to look for a job, which it sounds maybe a bit pompous, just to be like, I'm not going to even bother looking for a job.
Yeah.
But it never really occurred to me.
It's probably because the way your brain's wired. Your
Yeah,
brain, because you've done it like you say for 8 years previously.
yeah,
You know, that's the next step for you is I'm just going to start, practicing,
yeah,
and that's
yeah,
how it came about.
yeah, definitely.
So, so did you move back to Manchester at this point, or are you still up in Aberdeen?
At that point, I was in Aberdeen
Yeah.
still. So, but really shortly after graduating, my partner and I moved to Aberdeen.
Okay.
Because I'd stopped studying. It was the way that our lives happened, and at that point, it became really possible to leave and go back down south, come to Manchester. So yeah, we packed our bags. Um,
Um,
but yeah, that's where I was at that point.
yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah.
And then you set up in Manchester as a psychotherapist.
Psychotherapist,
Yeah.
yes. I think at that point, my private practice, which for those who don't know, counselors in business, counselors and psychotherapists, they tend to call it private practice.
Yeah.
Is that common knowledge? I'm not really
Yeah,
sure.
I knew about that. Yeah, but I don't know
Yeah.
whether it's common knowledge, but
Okay.
I knew about that. Yeah, yeah.
Sure, sure. So my private practice, I set up, you won't be surprised to know, but I set up as soon as I'd done kind of basic training, which for me, because I was doing a master's, and it's really fast paced, I did all the hours and everything that I needed to get in order to be in the BACP, which stands
Right.
for the British Association of Counselors and Psychotherapists.
Yeah.
And then I did my thesis, which meant that I got my master's and further specialisms in working with children and young people. Um, so by the time I actually graduated with my master's, my MSc, my practice was about 6 months old, and I worked online. So I was able just to move myself to
Hmm.
Manchester.
Right.
But I'm being very specific about the dates, which probably doesn't matter. But
No,
yeah,
but
I
it's
moved.
that whole thing, isn't it? It's detail sometimes that
Mm,
effectively break,
mm.
pads out the story and makes the story more
Yeah,
realistic. Um,
yeah.
so you worked as a psychotherapist working
Mm,
with, the private clients that you were
mm.
working with,
Yeah,
and now we're getting into the area where
Mm,
This is the thing that really fascinates me.
mm,
You pivoted. So
yeah.
how did the pivot come about?
The pivot came about because I got curious and interested in coaching. And that started because people would ask me if I could coach.
Hmm.
So it actually was a response to the market, you could say. I had
Yeah,
clients would come and say, I, I, I want coaching rather than therapy. Like, do you do this? And being really open and transparent, I was like, well, no, because I'm not trained.
hmm,
Um, which again, now in hindsight, I think that with the training that therapists get, I think therapists can pivot to coaching very easily. But I don't think it's not vice versa. I don't think that
yeah,
coaches can pivot to therapy. It's a one way door.
yeah,
Um, but nonetheless, like a good egg, I went and trained. So I trained for a year to become a life coach,
yeah,
and I added on a specialism to be a business coach. Because at that point now, I've lost track of the years, but I'd been in business for so many years, and I thought I love business as well. I love everything that you could think of when it comes to a business.
yeah,
I thought I'm going to work with business owners and get business coaching.
yeah,
Um, so yes, there we are. That takes us up to then. So
yeah. So where did the passion for
mm,
working with family businesses start?
family businesses, yes. So that's a great question because I think at that point I was armed with my therapy qualification, business coaching qualification, and there was a brief period that I was doing work as a therapist, pure psychotherapy, you could say, um, and business coaching, and it was very, very separate. And I would get people in both my practices that would want to lean on the other skill,
Hmm.
if that made sense, because I would get business owners and couples who had businesses in my therapy practice, and they were saying, well, can we take a little bit of that business coaching like skill that I have? And I would be like, yeah, let's talk about it. We'll contract for it. And yeah, let's do that. And likewise in my business coaching practice, I would get couples and individuals there that would lean on my therapy skills. So they just started to merge anyway. So I was like,
Hmm.
it's kind of difficult to keep the skills separate
Yeah.
even though I had a very different marketing message, my positioning was very different. So it was different, but they were merging. And behind the scenes, I thought, here I am talking about business and separately from the person, which didn't quite sit right with me. Um, and I thought, what do I what do I want to do? Like what's aligned with myself? And actually, I kept saying, like, I really care about families and the relationships, full stop. And I was like, and I also really care about businesses. And I actually remember I'd go on these really long walks, and the thought occurred to me as I kept saying family and business and family and business. And I was like, hang on, like that's actually a thing. Like, why
Yeah.
not why not put them together? And then as soon as the thought occurred to me, it just absolutely took off and it made so
Hmm.
much sense for my own experience, which is something that we can talk about, um, because my own story, but my skills, my qualifications, and then as bold to say a good business owner would do, you go do some research and get on Google, and I was like, hey, what does that look like in terms of family businesses? And I saw that more than 80% of businesses in the UK are family owned, meaning that business slash companies, the majority decision maker is owned and ran by a family, over 80%,
Wow.
which is more than 5 million businesses. It's over half of the what am I trying to say? Sorry, it's roughly over half of people who are employed by private in the private sector are their employers are business family businesses.
Yeah.
And it's something like £3 trillion per year go through family owned companies. So
Right.
these numbers are absolutely huge. And
Mhm.
then doing some research and just thinking about it, particularly from my own experience personally and professionally, I thought there's an absolute need that a family business needs to be taken care of as a family and as a business to kind of look at all lenses and all dynamics. So
Yeah.
it hit me like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Because we all know people who work with family members,
Mm,
but then there's also the thought process that when you think of a founder
mm,
who has a family, that
mm.
founder might be working in the business on their own,
Yeah.
but they still refer to it as a family business
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they might
Yeah.
have other family members, a partner or a parent, or something else that are shareholders within the business and
Yeah.
that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
It's very true. But
Mm.
so you we've got you have an interest in family businesses clearly,
Yeah.
um, and you touched on it and you said we can talk
Mm.
about that. So
Mm.
do you want to give a bit of background around that side of things?
Yeah. Background is the kind of the long story, and the really, really honest story is that it's kind of both true that I do not come from an entrepreneurial background.
Uh-huh.
Um, but then that's not 100% true, and it's not the full story because I kind of do. And I come from a family that always really wanted to be entrepreneurial, and there was a lot of ideas about businesses, which is not unique because I mean, to throw another statistic out there, I think it's about 50% of adults dream about setting up their own business.
Mhm.
So lots of us are entrepreneurial in that sense of wanting to be our own bosses,
Yeah.
which was very much my family. And there was a period of time that my family did set up a business, and it was very
Mhm.
much family business in every sense of the word, because I think you touched on it before that the meaning of a family business is really nuanced
Mhm.
because there's nuances about what's a family. I mean,
Yeah.
to start with, um, but it really it was a family business, and it was the absolute dream come true because my family talked about it for years. It was a lot of savings and a lot of time and hopes and dreams went into this project, to this business. Um, However, uh, it lasted for a couple of years only because it was not successful and the business closed its doors, which again is not wild to say because so many businesses end that way. And I don't want to call it a success or a failure or to kind of put a label or a judgment on it. It just didn't last, and
Mhm.
it was officially closed by
Yeah.
HMRC. Blah blah blah. It
Yeah.
closed. But there was so much more than that of when businesses close.
Yeah.
Like there was so many hopes and dreams that was involved in that, and so much money. And it was a family decision to close it. I mean, so many things end, or in my case, let me rephrase that. In my family's case, so many things ended, and it really took. There was like ricochets through the family that the kind of the fact that a business was introduced into the family dynamic changed the family,
Yeah.
and also the fact that the family kind of wobbled. It really struggled with the new member, you could say, if you want to call the business a new member of the family.
Mhm.
Um, the business struggled because it just ricochets, it just goes off together, and it can
Yeah.
really spiral.
Yeah,
So,
it really, really can. Well, you know my story, but
mm,
I totally can empathize with that.
yeah,
Actually, the business becomes almost, in our case, the
mm,
business was the fifth family member.
yeah,
Um, and in many respects, what I say to people when they're running their business is don't treat your business like a
mm,
baby that you've nurtured and you've grown,
yeah,
which is very difficult for founders. Founders find it very difficult to detach
mm,
themselves emotionally from the business.
yeah,
But the problem is when you don't detach yourself emotionally from it, you make
yeah,
emotional decisions,
yeah,
and that
yeah,
becomes that can spiral and that can cause a whole
Yeah.
manner of problems.
Yeah.
So you could really say then your experience then as a teenager and seeing your
Mm.
family go through that,
Yeah.
would you say that that is now a reason as to why you've gone down this,
Yeah.
that you're there, you can
Mm.
recognize the challenges of the struggles that
Mm.
your family faced,
Yeah.
and you are wanting to prevent
Mm.
other families going through the same
Yeah.
experiences? Is that the
Yeah.
inspiration behind the direction that you've gone in?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely an inspiration because it's definitely a personal touchstone
Hmm.
of kind of seeing a business close down, a family really, really struggle, like relationships, on the rocks is not too much of an exaggeration to say
Mm.
that. Um, so yeah, an absolute inspiration, but also the ricochets of because I was just a young person. I was kind of
Yeah.
16 to 18. But the kids and teenagers, they watch and they listen so no, I was not involved, but also I really was. And it did impact the way that I run my businesses. And it was a big inspiration of why I trained as a therapist in the first place, is because I see relationships struggle. And I think all young people, they feel powerless and want to be able to step in, but of course you can't. So I think as adults, we kind of become who we wish that we had.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I would say, listening to your story, I know you said I don't really come from an entrepreneurial background, but
mm,
I think you probably do, because
mm,
that experience that you went through as a
mm,
mid-teenager, let's say,
mm, yeah,
um, that probably gave you inspiration and belief that
mm,
people do work for themselves, and you can work for themselves. And I appreciate that your
yeah,
family business
yeah,
didn't survive.
mm,
Um, but I'm a big believer in there's no such word as failure, right? So
yeah,
for me,
I agree.
failure is a negative word, and I think
Yeah.
there's learning all the way
Mm,
through. And
mm,
what that whilst the business wasn't successful and didn't survive,
yeah,
what it gave you
mm,
was
mm,
probably an inspiration to go out
yeah,
and work for yourself.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and that's amazing.
yeah,
So, what is the biggest challenge as a business owner? So
mm,
you're
mm,
probably what, 12,
mm,
13 years now into running your own
mm,
businesses.
mm, mm,
What's been the biggest challenge that you didn't expect to face, but you faced,
mm,
and how did you overcome that?
yeah. Okay. I mean, myself as a
Personally, as a business owner, yeah,
me.
you as a business owner.
Yeah. It's a great question. And I actually think I don't know if there is one biggest challenge. And I actually think that all the challenges are just one. They're all just so interrelated.
Okay.
So there might be challenges of like how to write a LinkedIn post effectively, which is
Yeah.
not something I don't think I'm very good at that. Like, so that's one challenge. But I think it all comes back to the person.
Uh-huh.
Um, particularly around beliefs that like you can do it. I think confidence is a huge skill. And if someone struggles with their confidence, I can see that business is gonna be impacted. The same thing about like deciding what you want as a person and the way you want to work. I think
Hmm.
that really impacts us. There needs to be clarity on that. I think if it doesn't align, if the business doesn't align with the person, the business is going to struggle. So I think there's so much personal development that comes into that as an individual business owner. Even things around like asking for what you want and what you need.
Yeah.
Like the obvious one is just saying to your client, "This is going to cost £80. Like you
Yeah.
need to hand over some money now." Like I think
Yeah.
that's something. I think there's So I guess to answer your question of what's the biggest challenge, I think it's a personal development challenge of being in business.
Hmm.
I think sometimes for me as well, this is something I was actually just talking about with my partner recently of myself. Because I know, just to interrupt myself here, tiny, tiny tangent. I know you and we have conversations about our partners kind of being a pseudo business partner, even though
Yeah.
we're solo entrepreneurs.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he gets it all the time of like how I'm doing, how's my business.
Yeah.
Um, but it was about just my own discipline, my own motivation to kind of get up and go back to work, because it's great that I don't have a boss, but that means I have to put on that hat and get myself going.
Be
Um,
accountable to yourself, basically.
yeah,
It's a hard
yeah,
thing to do. It's a
yeah.
hard thing to do.
Yeah. So I think, to answer your question, I think it's some people call that the soft skill, which I don't really like that phrase, because I think that's actually the hardest part is
Yeah, yeah,
self-discipline, relying on yourself, just following through and doing what you said you were going to do when you could totally cancel,
yeah, yeah,
like
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
like stuff like this. I think that's the challenge. Oh, that's the tool that needs to get sharpened all the time.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I like that because actually it's true. And overcoming your own, I know from my own personal perspective, overcoming my own insecurities
Yeah.
are probably one of the hardest things that I
Mm.
face
Yeah.
from a business perspective.
Mm.
When I put together Business Boost Academy, you
Mm.
know, there's a vulnerability there. It's
Yeah,
laying that vulnerability bare because what I'm
yeah,
doing is working with one-to-one people is fine because you can talk
yeah,
about stuff and
yeah.
you can respond to situations and you can give
Mm,
advice and support in those situations based
mm,
upon your own
mm,
experience.
mm,
But when you put it out there on the
mm.
internet
Yeah,
and you make it accessible for other people to
yeah,
view your IP or your knowledge or
yeah,
whatever, there's
yeah,
a vulnerability there. And it was one of
yeah,
those things that I personally had to really sort of overcome.
yeah.
And aside from the technical aspect to it of putting it all together, which I'm not a particularly technical person anyway, but
Mm,
aside from the technical aspect and the technical challenge,
mm.
I could learn the technical stuff.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
have learned the technical stuff. I've learned how
yeah.
to write content, film content, edit content, and all of that
Mm,
kind of stuff. Put it up on
mm,
a plate, put it up on a page and,
mm,
and do that.
mm.
But actually, from a vulnerability perspective,
Yeah, yeah,
I'm putting myself out there
yeah, yeah,
and, preparing myself ready to be shot down by people who disagree with
yeah,
my thought process or the way that
yeah,
I do things. And as it happens, that's in my head because
yeah,
that's never happened. But it's that little devil on my shoulder that sits there
yeah,
saying, oh, you're not really very good, are you?
yeah,
People are,
yeah, yeah,
and it's getting over that. And
yeah,
that's a huge obstacle to overcome.
yeah,
So yeah, I think you're right when you say one of the biggest challenges small business owners face is the confidence in themselves to be able to do it,
yeah,
and also the
mm,
discipline to be able to do it
yeah,
and treat it as you are going to work.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
One of the things my dad used to do, and we used to take the mickey out of him religiously for it,
Mm,
when he first set up his
mm,
business in 1985,
mm,
he was working out of the front bedroom, and what he used to do was he used to get up in the morning, have a shower,
mm,
get dressed into business clothes.
mm.
So he'd put a
Great.
suit on, he'd put a tie on, come down, have breakfast, he'd then put
Yeah.
his shoes on, and then he would go up to work.
Oh,
And
great.
for him,
Yeah.
the business dress
Yeah.
basically got him in the mindset that he was then at work.
Yeah.
And he would
Yeah.
sit there and he would work as he normally would do. And
Yeah.
he'd get up and make himself the occasional cup of tea or coffee or
Yeah.
whatever. But
Mm,
basically, when he was there to work.
mm,
And that was how
mm.
he overcame that mindset that
Yeah.
treated it as a business rather than
Yeah.
just I'm going up
Yeah.
to the front bedroom
Yeah.
to do some work.
Yeah. Absolutely. Love that. I mean, what a great example of a boundary in terms of
Yeah.
like a ritual of like I'm now crossing into another place in my head, like
Yes.
mental state. Um, I think it's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that was just how he overcame that particular challenge. And I suppose there are
Yeah.
different ways of doing it. I mean,
Yeah.
with me, I'm basically jeans, t-shirt, and jumper all day, every day.
Uh-huh.
Um, but I'm quite disciplined in the time that I come into my
Yeah.
office in the morning.
Yeah.
I try to be in here make sure I'm here at my desk by nine
Mm.
o'clock every morning, and I
Yeah.
work through till sort of,
Yeah.
6:30 in the evening. And what I
Yeah.
tend to do as well is I always try to make sure that I don't sit there and take 2 hours for lunch.
Yeah.
I'm fairly disciplined with my lunchtime
Mm.
routine, and I have my day planned
Mm.
out, so
Mm.
I know what I'm trying to do,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's keeping that sort of that
Mm.
discipline going.
Yeah.
So going
Yeah.
back to the family business side of things, then
Mm.
because you know me, I could talk about family businesses forever.
Yeah,
Um,
and we have.
and we did.
We talk about this all the time, you and I. But yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. You'll be able to check out my visit on Lily's podcast that we recorded last week.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
there's some confessions in there. So going back to sort of like the family business side of things, what are the
Mm,
typical challenges you see them facing,
mm.
and how do you help them work through those problems?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question, and I think there's some themes. There's definitely pillars because I feel that I'm a really strong believer that a strong family can make a strong business. Like if you're intending to have a family business and there are struggles and challenges in the relationships, which of course there always are. So it's impossible for me to judge in every single level about that because all relationships have their struggles and challenges and needs. There needs to be communication about everything,
Hmm.
good, bad, and ugly. But if there are like real ruptures and cracks in the relationships in a family and you're now adding a business onto the mix or trying to have it's not a good foundation. It's so all of that is to say working through the relationships is one big part of what I will do.
Right.
um, and I resolve a lot of conflicts. As of recently, I trained as a mediator, so another tick in the box of the formal uh, qualification training.
Yeah.
But I will work through conflict resolution essentially. But also, there'll be things that family businesses will come across, like what every business owner will come across, but sometimes it's a bit more complicated. It's just like a lot more vibrant and uh, intense, I suppose,
Yeah, I
as a
was going to say
challenge.
the word I was going to use is raw.
Yeah, raw. Yeah.
Yeah.
For example, I mean, I am careful with my words here because I want to be specific. That I feel that every challenge that a business will face, a family business is going to face, but more raw and intense. And I don't think that business owners, regular business owners that don't work with family, there's challenges that a family business owner will face that they're not facing.
Yeah. There's
Um,
personal relationships intertwined, isn't there? And that's the thing.
yeah.
If I know certainly within my own family business,
Mm,
there was a family dynamic where you had
mm,
my parents were sat at the top of the family business, then there was my
yeah.
brother, and then there was me because I was
Yeah.
the youngest member of
Okay.
the family that was involved.
Yeah.
So you, by virtue of your upbringing,
Yeah.
you you're used to kind of, I suppose, deferring to your elder
Mm,
sibling, or you're used to
yeah.
deferring to your parent, or when your
Yeah.
parents are used to they've raised you, they brought you
Yeah.
up, they're used to sort of
All sorts.
doing that side of things. And I suppose
Yeah.
again, if you've got brothers and sisters that are in a
Mm,
family business, then there's that
yeah.
family dynamic where they've grown up together,
Yeah.
even if they were to start a business together. So yeah,
Yeah.
you've got those relationships are intensified almost.
Intensified.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. It literally is another dynamic that you've got. I talk about it, um, that in a family business, you've got the individual to care for and mm, manage,
Yeah.
and you've got the family dynamic and the business dynamic, which is not the case in a regular, for like lack of a better word, a business that's
Yeah.
not family owned. You've got the individual dynamic and the business, and that's
Mhm.
it. Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure if I've answered your question or
Yeah,
your
I
thoughts.
think you have. Like I say, it's very much about the challenges that are involved there. And
Mm,
one of the things that I want to pick up on what you said
mm,
is if the relationship is fractured,
yeah,
the business is going to just enhance
yeah,
that fracture in
yeah,
exactly the same way that if you have a
mm,
couple that are going
mm,
through, relationship stress in
mm,
whatever way, and then
mm,
they introduce a baby into the mix,
yeah, Yeah.
Generally speaking, because the stress involved with bringing a baby up is very
Mm.
high. And
Yeah.
actually, exactly the same
Mm.
situation here.
Yeah.
The stress in bringing a
Yeah.
business to life is incredibly
Mm.
high,
Yeah.
particularly when you're relying on it to
Yeah.
put food on the
Yeah.
table, a roof over your head, and all
Huge.
of those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can totally understand why that's going to fracture the business relationship and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
Um, when you're working with these the founders and the families
Mm.
and everything
Mm.
else,
Mm.
um, is there like a common theme that you may often
Mm.
see that threads
Yeah.
its way through that
Yeah.
sort of like family business dynamic?
Yeah. I mean, there are definitely common themes. There's also a common process, like the way of working tends to be pretty similar, which I won't get into because it's a bit more like behind the scenes of my way of working. Um, but yeah, there's themes of kind of power and control is a big theme.
Right.
Um, Communication is a massive theme. Like expectations are big themes. That's kind of one way of looking at the themes. And then there's also other things like governance, who owns what. We need to have conversations about shareholder agreements and
Yeah.
percentages. There's themes about roles and responsibilities and boundaries, like when and where we're going to talk about work. Just
Hmm.
question, which is a straightforward question, but it's not so much an easy answer, particularly to get people to agree. Because
Yeah.
I work with a couple that they agree to talk about work all the time. Like
Hmm.
they will talk about work at midnight, and that's grand because they both agree. Like essentially, like
Yeah.
it works for them. And I have
Yeah.
another couple that they would never do that because I think one of them would be willing, but the other one's not. So therefore, there needs to be a conversation about how to manage that because it's not, it's too strong to say they disagree. They just have different ways of working.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there needs to be a conversation about their way of working, which is different to the first couple I mentioned. So the when and where boundaries is a big one.
Hmm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. We would often go around to my parents' house
Mm,
and on a Sunday, and my
right.
brother would be there with his kids, and I'd be there with our kids and my
Yeah.
wife,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, 10
Mm,
minutes in, we'd end up just talking about
right.
what had gone on that week or what was coming up
Yeah.
the following week
Yeah.
or whatever,
Yeah.
and decisions would get made about the business
Mm,
over those weekends.
yeah.
And what you don't realize, and it's not until you sort of step away from it, you don't
Mm,
realize the impact that that
yeah.
has on your extended family that aren't actually involved.
Yeah.
I know certainly
Mm,
from my own wife's perspective, it
mm,
used to frustrate her that we couldn't just have a family barbecue without
mm,
talking
yeah.
about the business. And,
Definitely.
the kids would want to play, kick a ball around or
Mm,
kind of throw a ball about or just play hide and seek or something like
mm,
that. And
yeah.
we'd be in this in-depth discussion about, whether this client needs invoicing or we need to chase this
Mm,
payment or whatever. And
mm,
you had these kind of just general discussions that really should be left. And I think
mm,
as a
yeah.
family, that's something we didn't do very well.
Okay.
We didn't have that detachment from
Yeah.
the personal life and the business life.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I agree that it's very much down to the individual.
Mm, mm,
But then
yeah.
again, we were brought up in a household where my parents,
Mm,
once they started the
mm,
business, I was 13 when they started the business. They
mm,
talk. It was general topic of conversation around the dinner
mm,
table.
yeah.
So for me, it was
Mm,
normal. When we by the time I had
mm,
my own family and
mm,
I was a parent and married and everything else, it was normal
mm,
to talk about work on a Sunday.
mm.
Um,
Okay.
but that wasn't normal for my wife,
Right.
and that
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily normal for my brother's wife
Yeah.
either. So,
Yeah.
it's really really interesting how the
Yeah.
dynamics shift
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
change as
Absolutely.
other people come into that family. And I
Yeah.
don't think people realize how all
Yeah.
consuming
Yeah.
running your own business is all consuming
Yeah.
anyway. Yeah,
Totally.
you're
Yeah.
sitting down watching TV, you think about it, but
Totally.
then when you add that family mix in there as well,
Yeah.
it just like you say, it adds another layer of complication to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it can absolutely spread like without borders
Yeah.
now. And I really appreciate that you talk about your extended family because I put a lot of thought into including everybody, like in the work that I will do with my clients.
Uh-huh.
Like literally, they are welcome in the session, um, but also they need to be considered in the conversation, just about the impact,
Hmm.
like of the influence of where this thing is traveling to. Because I think that people who marry in, or the wives and children or husbands, they are impacted, 100%. So
Yeah,
I think it's
absolutely.
important.
It's really kind of important. So look,
Mm.
going back to your business then.
Mm.
So um, you've obviously pivoted. You've gone in sort of separate
Mm.
direction.
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself going? Well, I'm a big believer
Mm.
in,
Mm.
people, you have to evolve and develop
Mm.
to grow a business and to develop and
Yeah.
everything else. Where
Yeah.
do you see yourself going? Where's Lily going to be sat in 10 years time? What's
Oh,
your thought process? Well, let's say,
yeah.
okay, 5 years time.
Okay.
What's your thought process? Where do you see yourself going in business wise?
Yeah, it's a great question. My truthful answer and the first answer that comes into my head, which might be a bit like gooey, is I want to continue helping people. I really see that as progression, is to be able to work with more people, even if this will not happen, because as we know, it never stays the same. Like it's
Yeah.
impossible. And there might be a little bit of a red flag if someone says, I'm going to do exactly the same thing in the next 5 years, maybe a red flag. Um, but if more people get to come through my business and be supported and reach out to me for support, that is progress, just
Yeah.
because more of an impact. So that is the truthful answer. And I say maybe the gooey one. But I wonder if I will support other professionals in supporting family businesses.
Yeah.
Because I get this often that I will meet a lawyer or um, an accountant or a IFA who will I will need to work with them in partnership because another little side point, my work is really multi disciplinary. Like I cannot do full justice to my clients if I try and keep them with me. Like
Hmm.
that's weird. But they need a solicitor, an FIA on their team. So I work in partnership a lot with other professionals. And oftentimes these folks will say like, I'm working with this family business, not as a family, but maybe writing their wills. Like who
Yeah.
knows? Like they kind of we all stay in our lanes, right? Um, but they'll say like I don't know how to work with a family business, and they're so different to non-family owned businesses. Like,
Mhm.
what's your thoughts? Um, so I wonder if I'll kind of support them more, which is kind of training the trainer, I think is a way to
Yeah.
describe that.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a way to support family businesses, but via other professionals.
Mhm.
I care about that a lot.
It's the way that you can have a greater impact, because
Mm,
working as we both know, working one to
mm,
one,
yeah,
you can only affect so many people.
yeah,
Working one to many, you can have a
yeah,
much larger impact on those
yeah,
people.
yeah,
Again, it was the principle behind Business Boost Academy.
yeah,
There's only one of me, and
yeah,
actually I can only help so many people working one to one.
yeah, yeah, indeed.
I can expand that out. And
Yeah.
I think in some respects as well, the one to many
Mm,
opportunity is there for
mm,
somebody like yourself, where
mm,
you could get a
mhm,
group of
mm.
people who are
Yeah,
business owners, but
yeah,
family business owners, and
yeah,
you could work with them
yeah,
in a group environment.
yeah.
Because the I think what people would realize is the challenges that people face in business in general are
Mm,
very similar.
mm,
Usually, if you're looking at it from a business perspective,
mm.
cash flow
Yeah,
cash flow
cash
is a
flow.
problem,
Yeah,
staff are a problem,
yeah,
sales are a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And those generally speaking are the
Mm.
three major problems that
Yeah.
people have within any business that they operate.
Yeah.
Then
Indeed.
you add the family dynamic in there,
Yeah.
and actually those people who work in those family
Mm.
businesses,
Mm.
they would really appreciate the
Mm.
understanding that the
Yeah.
family dynamic, that other family
Yeah.
business owners, they are not unique and they are going
Yeah.
through the same challenges and
Yeah.
same problems. I
Yeah.
remember going back, oh, blimey, we must be going back 20 years now,
Oh.
nearly 20 years.
Mm.
We were
Mm.
working with a business coach, and
Mm.
she was very keen to get us to go and visit another family business,
Mm.
because we had this perception that
Mm.
we were unique. We were a family business.
Mm.
There weren't many family businesses out there. There were loads, but in
Yeah.
our own little mind, that was the way we worked.
Yeah.
But we were going through various challenges within our business, and
Mm.
she wanted to take us to a business that
Mm.
was in a similar,
Mm.
um, I suppose, similar field to us, slightly removed, but a similar field to us,
Mm.
who were bigger
Mm.
than us, but they were
Mm.
also a family business. So
Mm.
my brother and I went up to Leeds to meet this
Mm.
this company, and
Mm.
I remember realizing that the same challenges
Mm.
we
Yeah.
faced
It's the
as a
same.
business,
Yeah.
as well as a family business,
Yeah.
were exactly the same challenges
Yeah.
they faced.
Oh yeah.
The difference being, because they were roughly 10 times the size
Yeah.
of us, they had 10 times the turnover, 10 times the staff,
Yeah.
and literally when you looked across the metrics, they were
Yeah.
literally a 10x of what we were.
Yeah.
They experienced the same
Mm.
problems. It was just
Mm.
with bigger numbers, and
Yeah.
they also had that family dynamic mix in
Yeah.
there.
As
And the
well.
difference there was that was two brothers that owned that business,
Mm.
whereas with us we were mum and dad and
Yeah.
then siblings.
Yeah.
And I think that was the thing, and it made us realize that, yeah, we all go through these things.
Mm.
So if you were
Yeah.
able to provide an environment where you could bring
Yeah.
all of the family businesses that you work with
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
one room
Yeah.
and then work with them, that could be an incredibly powerful tool for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Indeed. I think it yeah, I agree. I think it makes sense like from a scalability financial
Yeah,
perspective, but more importantly, it's providing that space because I think that I, as of today, I'm not sure that I'd offer group coaching with different families because now you've just got like the web of complexity is already like
yeah,
is already enormous just working with a family. I'm introducing multiple, but yeah, I think having some kind of network or community, and there are those out there. So shout out to Family Business Community, they do a great job.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think it's key.
yeah.
Um,
It absolutely is. It absolutely is key.
yeah.
Um, what would you say the the biggest success that you've had
Mm,
working as your own business owner?
okay.
On your own business, not necessarily working with your
Mm,
clients, but
okay.
working on your own business? What would you say is the thing that has
Mm,
given you
mm.
the greatest sense of achievement?
Ooh, that's a great question.
I love challenging.
Yeah, it's a great question. I guess the first thing that comes to my head is seeing the changes that my
Yeah,
clients make. As a fellow coach, I'm sure that's up there. That
100%.
is pretty high.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
it is the most rewarding thing. It
Yeah,
it truly is. So there's that. And it is the reason why I do what I do.
yeah,
I know you and I had a conversation just recently, and I remember you saying to me, Lily, I think you do really important work. Like,
yeah.
just, you didn't say thank you, but like that was the impression,
Yeah.
just like gratitude and appreciation. And
It
I
is.
like,
Yeah.
and it's huge. Like that really fueled me all weekend. Like
Oh,
I
lovely.
thought,
Yeah.
like I feel really good about this.
Yeah.
So it is a currency. It like in the sense that money is energy. I'm like that is like energetic to me.
Yeah.
That it's a reward to be um to get feedback and see positive change in your clients. So that's one of the greatest things. And I think another thing that I do separate from that, I think that I do well is that I'm really good at evaluating how things are going and checking in with myself, knowing if my business is aligned.
Yeah.
Because I'm a big believer that if I'm not doing well, then my business is going to struggle. So I think it's actually my duty to take care of myself. Like
Mhm.
we talk about self-care, and I actually think self-care gets Um, I'm not always a fan of the way in which self-care gets talked
Mm.
about. But it's 100, it's not wishy-washy and it's not optional. I'm like,
Mhm.
it's actually vital that we take care of ourselves because like,
Yeah, it really is. It
yeah,
really is so important. So
yeah,
important.
so
Um,
important.
I have to agree with you. The big for me as well, when when you've worked with somebody who you start working with that individual and
Mm.
they're on their knees might be a bit too strong, but they're really going through the mill.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you help and support them and you take them on a journey, and
Mm.
it's you guide them on a journey that they're
Mm.
taking themselves on that
Yeah,
journey, but they're
yeah.
willing to
A
put the
guide.
work in, and you lead them down a path
Mm.
to success,
Mm.
or whatever that success is that they look like.
Mm.
It's
Mm.
such a rewarding feeling of being able to
Mm.
do that. I couldn't agree with you
Yeah,
more.
yeah,
Um, so we're coming to the end now, and what I always like to do at the end is I love to ask this question,
yeah.
because you're somebody who is doing very well for themselves. You're running your own business.
Mm.
You have been for a long time. You've got an awful lot of experience there.
Mm.
Um, what is the one piece of advice that you
Mm.
would want to give 19-year-old Lily as she's
Oh,
stepping out of that room to say, right, I'm going to run my own business? What's the
yeah.
one piece of advice you'd give yourself, or you'd
Mm.
give any other business owner, that you could sit there and go,
Yeah.
right,
Mm.
this is my nugget? What would you say?
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant question. I think I'd probably say like it's possible. Like just business is possible. You're possible. You can do it. Like I think I'd just give encouragement, which is not the same as a piece of advice. I know you did ask for that, but
Yeah,
I suppose my piece of advice is like business is not going to work if each and every individual person is like not working, if that makes
yeah,
sense. Like a person not working is not the best way to word that. I think if something is not aligned or if people are not kind of there with it, it's not going to work. And I don't mean in a commitment sense. I think that things can work without full 100% commitment and side tangent, but we could have a conversation about what commitment means there.
yeah,
But I just think like taking care of yourself and your personal development is the way in which business works.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And I know what you mean when you're saying about you have to be there with it. It's almost like a business to work has to align with your own personal values.
yeah,
That's kind of,
yeah,
and I can totally concur with that,
yeah,
because actually, if you're not being true to yourself,
mm,
you'll feel
yeah,
like a fraud,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then you get found out. And
yeah,
authenticity is the key,
yeah,
because when you're sat in front of somebody, you have to
mm,
100% believe in what you're saying to that
mm,
individual.
yeah,
And if you
yeah,
don't know the answer, particularly doing what we do, if you don't know the answer to that, you
yeah,
have to be honest and say, do you know
yeah,
what? I don't know the answer to that. I
yeah,
will find out for you, or I will put
yeah,
you in touch with somebody who does know the
yeah,
answer to that.
yeah,
And authenticity is absolutely everything.
yeah,
And
yeah,
actually, what's quite interesting is that the podcast I recorded previously,
mm,
the lady who was on that podcast, Karen,
mm,
she said exactly the same, well, a very similar
okay,
thing.
okay,
Back yourself,
yeah,
believe.
back yourself,
And if you really want to do this, you
mm,
just sort of give it your everything. And
yeah,
actually, if it doesn't work out the first time, that
yeah,
doesn't mean to say it's not going to work out the second
yeah,
time.
yeah,
um
totally,
you have to learn from any mistakes,
mm,
any
mm,
problems that you face. You can learn
yeah,
from those.
yeah,
So I think that's really
absolutely,
crucial. Lily,
absolutely,
this has
right,
been wonderful, and I
yeah,
really appreciate your time today. And it's one
thank
of
you,
those things that um it's very important, I think. And I do stress you do important work. As somebody who comes from a family
mm,
business background, I
mm,
wish back
mm,
then we'd had Lily in our camp,
mm,
because it would have
thank
helped
you,
us tremendously,
mm,
certainly with that family dynamic.
yeah,
Um,
thank you.
so thank you very much. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we sign off, or whatever?
Please. Yeah, only that I think that we could absolutely keep talking. This has been
Yeah.
really interesting, and thank you so much for having me on because it's a real honor to be invited and to like you asking questions and showing an interest and just providing this space. I'm really grateful for it. So thank you for inviting me.
You are more than welcome. And you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too. Thank you.